So today with me, I got a genius, our brother David Schloss, who is a Facebook ads master, and we know a lot of the same cool people. So he's been really good in a lot of the e-com space as well as some high-ticket stuff. And one of the things I really like about you, David, you're real as fuck. Like, I read your Facebook posts. You don't like hide the parts of your life that aren't going so well. Like, you're really open and candid about what you're changing, and you don't leave stones unturned. And you're just, I don't know, I just love somebody who's a real ass motherfucker. So firstly, welcome on that note.
Appreciate that. Really appreciate it. You know, I try to keep things as real as I possibly can.
Yeah.
I figure, you know, why put up some sort of facade or barrier in between who I really am and what I do in business? To me, it's all one big giant world anyway. So I have no reason to fake it or, you know, talk about things that I don't really have. I figure, you know what, this is who I am. This is what I do. And, you know, more people can connect with that.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting. And this is a testament to how good you are. Is I've had a lot of challenges with Facebook ads over the years because it's just something I don't personally enjoy. And so I've repeatedly asked the question, who's the best Facebook ads person, you know? And, you know, get a lot of different names. But your name has been thrown in a lot from people whose opinion I very much value and respect. And that is a testament to the good work you're doing. So take me back to the beginning. Like, why the hell did you get in Facebook ads? Like, nobody when they were 3 years old, they said, I want to work with Zuckerberg, right? Nobody said that, right? When they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? So, like, how did your path bring you there?
Well, when I first started doing any sort of business online, I was doing SEO and video marketing. I was doing that first. And I did that for about 3 years before Facebook sort of popped up and became the powerhouse that it is.
Yeah.
Right. Taking it serious and going full time with it. You know, I started playing and dabbling with Facebook's advertising platform in its infancy when it first started out more than 10 years ago. But no one was really doing it at the volume that they're doing it today. Right. There's not that many agencies that had even just 10 or 15 clients running Facebook ads back then. There was no business manager or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I first started doing Facebook ads, you know, about 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago, I was just throwing things up to see what would work, right? Where can I get some clicks? Where can I send people to an affiliate offer? It was wild, wild west. So I was just dabbling with it, but not taking it too serious. I was still doing SEO and video marketing when I started. And I sort of evolved into going full time with Facebook when, you know, someone I really trusted back then with regards to SEO and video marketing said, I'm pivoting into paid ads and you should probably do the same thing too. So someone who had already taught me quite a bit about one industry was moving in a different direction, sort of gave me the guidance that maybe you should look into doing the same thing. And I waited a little bit too long to go 100% in. I sort of like gave it another year or two.
Yeah.
And I mean, in hindsight, it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was one of those things where that extra year or two, I probably could have, you know, found out a couple of additional things along the way that could have propelled my agency a little faster into being the way it is today. Now, I wouldn't change anything, honestly. I had to go through all the ups and downs to be where I am today. Mm-hmm. But, you know, back then, every click was basically a penny, sometimes less. You know, page likes were the easiest thing to get in the world. You could have already had a fan page with 300,000-400,000 fans and could be the biggest Facebook marketer in the world sort of situation, right? Yeah. So I didn't do any of those things because the way that I work and how I learn is I fully dive into things to the point where I then take all that knowledge, apply it to someone else's brand. I see that everything that I just learned has been validated, and then I start applying it to my own stuff. So it's like I go through a couple of layers before I decide, okay, I'm ready to use it on my own.
Yeah.
And so I've always been the one that's, you know, I sort of evolved into this, you know, using other people's money sort of individual, because that's what agencies are. We're always using other people's money.
Yeah.
And then I started to eventually adapt into using it on my own. And I've sort of built up this agency without really spending money on ads. And it's all because, like you said, case studies, right? I'll do something for somebody, they share it with more people, and it just keeps getting spread to the point where they all end up coming back to me and they're saying, I read this case study in someone else's group that I'm not even in, or on someone's website, or they emailed it to me, and I want to talk to you more about it. Yeah. And that's because that's how I've done everything since the beginning. Just applying what I learned, go ahead and do it. Take that same information, do it again, and it just gets to the point where people are like, okay, he's consistently producing results. I should probably tell someone else who needs some help that they need to work with him. So, you know, that's sort of how my whole Facebook I wouldn't even say it's a Facebook agency. It's my ad agency, because we do more than just Facebook. Has sort of evolved into, into some people's eyes, a powerhouse into running Facebook ads for people. So yeah.
There's a lot of good things you said there. Actually, it's very interesting because I had a similar journey. So I've actually built an SEO agency, the business I hated that I was very good at. And you eventually realize that your entire life's hands is in Google's algorithm, and they can like take it away at any given moment. And you realize it's not a good place to be. So like you, I had a similar transition where I was like, I kind of want to be able to like control my own fate and not just hope that they're going to like the links especially if you have experiences for clients. Like I've had experiences where I literally built the same links for like 5 different clients, and Google hates it for one of them and loves it for the other 4, and it like makes no sense. But it just is that way sometimes. So you mentioned, what you do is a lot simpler, which is really just show people the results you've got and the problems you've solved, and how a demonstration that you know what you're doing. And then it naturally breeds more people like the ones you had case studies for, so you can actually deliver more results and you don't vary too much outside your specialization and your niche. So in that kind of genius, share some tips on how you're doing that on purpose. And if you don't mind me asking, like, what has it done for you personally? Like, where has this kind of Facebook ads agency taken your life? Like, where did you start from, and where has it brought you to now?
Sure. So before I throw in all the tips, I'll get the story in really quick. So I basically went broke 2 separate times trying to figure this whole agency thing out.
Yeah,
right. So agency SEO side, like the whole Google algorithm stuff. When I was just getting started, the whole Panda Penguin thing was sort of like just becoming a thing. Originally, it was all taking place in Tampa, Florida. They had the Tampa update. That's sort of like what began the whole local businesses getting hit for having fake post office boxes to take over locations and all this craziness, right? So I understand what it was like during that time, 12 years ago, so to speak, when all the local updates occurred and then everyone got hit and slammed by Google for various things. And so during that transition, I was taking on some clients, but I had this issue with expansion. So it wasn't that I was scared to hire people or that I didn't know how to hire people. It's that I was too scared of losing the client, and I wanted to do everything myself because I felt that if I didn't do it myself, it wasn't going to be good enough. So I had this mindset of like, I could probably only take on 7 to 10 clients and that would be it. But then I also had this issue of pricing myself at a point where it was, I felt worthy of what I was charging. So I would charge them $1,000, $1,500. And at the time I was thinking, oh, that's fantastic. I'm making 1,500 times however many people. And, at 22, 23 years old, you're making 10 grand, 15 grand a month. You think you're on top of the world. Then you realize as you start to hire some people, it's really not that much. Yeah. And taxes. So you start to evolve and you're like, okay, well, I'm stuck. I was stuck at 7 to 10 clients consistently. I would say for several years, I kept hitting this point of getting to 10, and then I would somehow get knocked on my ass back to 7. Or I would get up to 11 and then back down to 8. And it was just bouncing up and down all the time. So then I started hiring people thinking, oh, if I just get them to take care of my stuff, I can go sell more. The problem is I didn't know how to position myself either. So during all these different transitions, every time I had a new problem, the business would go massive dip. Every time, just a huge dip. And so I had to eventually figure out how to mold all this together and make one massive decision at a given time and just have a huge downfall so I can have a massive uptick, because I noticed the pattern. I was like, great, I have some success and I fall, success and fall. I'd rather just have a massive fall and then have a massive win and then stay consistent. Yeah. And so that took roughly, I would say, up until like my 7-year mark in business for me to finally figure it out. So
with you on that one, by the way, 1,000%.
Yeah. So 7-year mark, which my mentor at the time told me, when you can have a business that survives longer than 7 years, you've made it. Because there's a lot of people who have flash in the pan businesses that do really well because of, they have a store that sells really well, or back then it was Teespring. You make $1.5 million off T-shirts, and then the next year Facebook says, screw you, Teespring, and now you can't sell anything on Teespring. Yeah. Right? You name all the different things that have come and gone. But for me, it was, I just couldn't sell. I didn't really know how to sell. I didn't know how to position myself, but I had results. So that's when a good buddy of mine told me, he's like, why don't you just start compiling really detailed case studies and start just putting it out there. And this was in combination of me, starting to go to events and communicating with people and collaborating on projects. And then at the same time, I would start to just connect with others online, sharing strategy and advice with them in exchange for something on my side. So if they would give me a strategy that would work on the lead gen side for me, I'd also find ways to give them tips on the Facebook side to help them improve their advertising.
Yeah.
Sometimes doing that led to getting more clients. And sometimes me just doing that built some goodwill. So all this exchange and collaboration and meeting people eventually led to just tons and tons of referrals. If you ask me how I build most of my business these days, probably 95% of the time I'm going to say it's referrals. Yeah. And if it's not referrals, it's events. I just go to events and I'll get 2, 3, 4, 5 clients just from going to an event for a couple of days. Yeah. If I go to that event, get some of these people results, and then, a couple months later, finally ask for a referral, I'll then get another 3, 4, 5 clients on board just from asking if they can just refer me to one person. Yeah. And so I've continually done that since that 7-year mark, which I think now it's been close to 5 years since that moment of like, oh shit, this is what I need to do. And when I finally figured it out, that's when everything became far more consistent. So, broke through that 10 client mark, got to 20, and then I was like, okay, now what? And then the following year I got to like 25 to 30, bounced around there. I'm like, all right, that's cool. And then all of a sudden, in the massive breakout year was around 2016, 2017, I went from 30 to 45. And I'm like, I'm actually consistently at 45 clients. And we're not moving. Yeah. When someone leaves, they're replaced very quickly. Even today. I'm not going to say the date, but I'll just say this. I lost someone this morning. I already have someone on board who's going to start on Friday. Like, just from doing what I'm doing, just naturally people come in and they're like, okay, I've heard enough about you. I don't even need to get on a call. What do I have to send you? And we could start on Friday. Yeah. So just doing the work, putting things out there, trying my absolute best and doing all the work behind it to make sure that people get the results they're looking for. But it's more than just, I'm going to do a campaign for you. It's what's the byproduct of those campaigns. Do you want another house? Do you want a bigger car? Do you want to take more vacations? Do you want to spend more time with your family? That's what I look at more than just, oh, I'm going to go get you $5 registrations on your webinar because you want to make an extra $1,000. Yeah. The campaign is surface level. What's beyond that? And so that whole approach has led to the whole story unfolding. It's like, it's less about just the monetary gain. It's like what else happens behind the scenes. And if I help you with that monetary gain that leads to everything else, then how are you going to help me? And it's more than just the exchange of, I'm going to give you money to take care of all these ad campaigns. Yeah. My clients naturally want to make sure that I succeed. So we build this bond of, you give me X amount to run all these ads. I'm going to help you get that whatever thing that you want. And in exchange, can you help me get to this destination? And it works incredibly well because when they hit their goal, they do everything in their power to get me where I want to go to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you actually said a few brilliant things that really resonate with what I've gone through, which is the biggest thing I've realized, like my journey kind of parallels yours, where we've had spikes of doing really, really well, and then they're unsustained spikes, and you go back to, I've had months of like 50,000 followed by 0, right, where it's like, and part of that is when you realize when you do that you're basically every 6 months you're having to rebuild stuff from the ground up. And I think the biggest thing lacking that I ultimately realized is what you just mentioned is really like tightening the bolts a little bit and building referral systems and just working with the right people and keeping it a much more kind of right fit, close-knit community. And so it's very interesting that you mentioned that. I think the other thing that you really kind of hit on that's really powerful is all that stuff is built on like real relationships as well. It's not like just trying to hustle and make a buck, because if you do that for people, again, like I find that if people have businesses that exist only to make money, they actually don't continue to make money and sustain it over time, because once they do start hitting their goals, they really just have no incentive to get out of bed anymore, and so it'll fall off the table. And so it's really good that you found the deeper level in Facebook ads. Can I ask you a little about that? Like,
Sure.
At what point did you realize I'm running more than just a fucking clicks campaign trying to get somebody in an evergreen webinar so I can sell them a strategy session? At what point did you realize, like, I'm getting people out of debt, I'm providing a better life for their family, I'm like, at what point did that become apparent to you and become what was important?
Oh, that became far more clear about 3 years ago,
Yeah.
right? So funny thing is, when I attended our good friend Oliver's event, I actually came to that conclusion. It was about 3 years ago from like this week.
Yeah.
So I was in the room and I actually said like, oh, I don't help people with campaigns. I help them build a better life through their campaigns. And it was like the first time I sort of ever said that out loud. It was one of those things where when you really dig deep behind what's the whole premise behind running advertising, it's more than just adding more money to the business. It's what comes after they make that money anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you make money through your business. What happens with that money? You pay your bills, you invest back in the business, you hire more people, maybe you get some real estate, maybe you get some stocks, maybe you buy a new watch, whatever it may be. That's the byproduct of your work. The money is the vehicle to go get those things.
Yeah.
And so when I started looking at it from that perspective of, oh, I'm not just helping people make money. I've helped people buy a new boat. I've helped people get out of debt. I'm talking some people who took out business loans of like 500 grand who got out of that business loan within 3 months of working with me when they've had that same loan for 3 years. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. So when I looked at it from that perspective, all of a sudden I realized, oh, there's a much greater good than just, oh, I run Facebook ads for people. There's a shit tons of people who run Facebook ads. A lot of them suck and a lot of them are great. But you know what? All they ever tell people is that they run Facebook ads, and that's why they're not signing on more clients.
Yeah.
So when I work with people, I don't say, oh, I'm an ad agency. I run a Facebook ad agency. I run a social ad agency that helps people achieve their goals through purpose-driven marketing. Yeah. What is the purpose of what they're doing? To teach X amount of people. When they teach X amount of people, it helps them obtain Y thing. So I help 100 people become millionaires, and the Y product because of that is I'm going to get a bigger house, I'm going to have more vacations with my family, and I'm going to take my kids through college, paid in full, right? So it's like looking at the full picture. And when you start to do that, it becomes a lot more fun. The client becomes a lot more motivated to work with you for the long term because you've now created a vision and a forecast of what you need to create in order to achieve the goal. And then on top of that, you enjoy everything about the person that you're working with, because there's a lot of agencies these days that hate working with people, which make no sense. So they sign on all these clients. They got 20 clients paying them $5K a piece. And they're making tons of money, but they hate making those phone calls when they have to deliver a report every week. It's like, that's a part of the game. You should have known that when you signed up to run an agency. But, that's why a lot of people these days are saying they're getting burned.
Yeah.
They're getting burned because they're not communicating correctly with their client. They're not creating the forecast and the vision and the tasks that need to be done in order to get there. And people are feeling lost and they feel hopeless. That's why I have some of these calls and I'm talking to someone who sounds like a victim. It sounds like someone got bankrupted. All they did was have a bad month with this ad agency person and they just want something better. But the way that they talk about it makes it sound like someone robbed them and that their business is falling apart and that they can never run Facebook ads again because of this person. Because that's how damaged people are after working with someone who just doesn't give a shit about them when they're running their ads. That's why I put more emphasis on, communicating with the client, learning more about them, learning the story, because that's more important to them than just, oh, I ran an ad for your webinar and we got 20 people this week and 2 of them bought. Yay. No one gives a shit. Like, what happens after that?
Yeah.
And so, that's where you could see the difference in, how I communicate with people, how I put my message out there. There's really no filter. It just goes out there. This is what it is. This is what I'm creating. I don't care what other people think in terms of, are Facebook ads dead? Are Facebook ads evolving? Or is it a revolution? It's like, I don't give a shit. You just go and do. The more you do, the more you learn. And if you're just going to rely on other people's, consensus around what is going to happen with Facebook, then you're never going to have results anyway, right? So it's like, do the work, forecast things with your clients or with the people you're working with, create the vision for the long term, and just do the work. And naturally, you'll get there. So I hope that gives you an idea of just like how this all sort of evolves from what I've done as a business person, not just as an ad agency, but it's like how I portray things to people and why they seem to stick around and want to build things. And they always come back. I have clients that have come back 3-4 times. We'll work on a project, they'll disappear for 3 months, and they'll come back again. And they don't try anyone else. They just come back when they're ready.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen very often with agencies.
Yeah, I think part of that comes through your transparency in creating a vision, which I really dig, by the way, is I would say, like, this is a mistake I've definitely made personally, and I think the number one mistake agencies make after they get a client is right after they onboard them, they don't really give them any expectations other than we'll send you a report every so often. And often that report is highly technical, and the person's left to like do some analyzing and figuring out, and they don't know where they're in the process. And so you get either one of two scenarios I've seen, which is scenario one is they think they're going to make $1 million overnight, and you just have to push a fucking button, and on goes the fire hose, and then they're disappointed that you didn't, because it's like, hey, I didn't make $1 million, and the ad's been running an hour. Why am I not a millionaire? And you're like, hold on there, Jeeves. We got a little testing to do, right?
I could actually make that simpler in a minute, right? Yeah. So this is what I do for people who have agencies and you want to make the communication process easier without having to do PDF reports every week. Record a screencast for 5 to 10 minutes, walking through every campaign you've created, explaining why you did what you did, why you chose the targeting, why you chose the creative, how you wrote the copy, and send it to the client.
Yeah.
Yes, it's 5 to 10 minutes per video. If you have 50 clients, it could be a huge pain in the ass. I'm not saying you got to do it with every single client, but there are certain clients that want that level of communication where they want to talk to you every week or they want to report every week. Most of my clients don't. They actually want one piece of communication a month. So we'll have one call for 30 minutes or an hour, and we'll break everything down, and we're good. But I do have a couple that want reports every week. So I record the screencast. I break everything down just like as I said, and I'll send it off in Slack, Skype, email, wherever they communicate with me. And the response I get the majority of the time is, thank you for these screencasts. They make it so much easier to understand.
Yeah.
Because if you typed it all out, you're not going to read a 5-page report from me. It's like getting a lead magnet every week of trying to explain what's going on.
Yeah.
I can explain it in 5 minutes, and that's going to make it a lot easier for you. Same thing with the data. Instead of just putting the data in a PDF or in a chart or a spreadsheet and hoping that the client understands it, put it in a video, send it to them, and say it out loud. And most of the time, the client's going to go, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Because it's just how they learn. Maybe they need to be more visual, or they got to hear it, or you got to show them what's going on behind the scenes. It makes it so much easier and simpler to break things down. And because of that, I don't have to put PDF reports together. Because of that, my call volume has actually gone down, because some people just don't even want to have calls anymore. They're like, hey, just send me a screenshot.
Yeah.
Right. So, or a screencast and a couple screenshots, and we're good. So, 40, 50 clients at any given time, I may only have 10 or 15 of those clients that want to have calls once a month, and the rest just want screencasts.
Yeah.
So naturally, I can go ahead and start closing more people because I don't have to be on the phone all the time.
Yeah.
No, that solves the communication gap, and too many advertisers don't know how to explain the work that they've done.
Yeah.
That's a huge problem.
I saw that. Sorry, I was just going to say in SEO that's even worse, because they send 100-page technical reports that people are like, I don't even know what the fuck this says.
No one cares about their ranking reports until you explain to them how many of those rankings are on page 1.
Yeah.
That's all you have to talk about.
Yeah.
And I was doing that in the SEO days. Instead of saying like, oh, this one you're on page 3 and you're number 24 and da-da-da, I would just go, look, you have X amount of rankings on page 1. You have X amount that are within the top 5. And then everything else is on page 2 or below. The ones we're focusing on are on page 1. And that would make it that much easier for the client to be like, oh, okay, so 50 keywords, 20 of them are on page 1. These ones are in rankings 1 through 5, and that's fantastic. That's all they cared about. They don't give a crap about the page 5 stuff and the page 3. It's the same thing about Facebook. Most of the people don't understand the lead cost. They don't understand registration cost, applications, cost per sale, cost per call. If you broke that all down in a spreadsheet and sent it, 90% of the time they're going to go, what's going on here? If you verbally just say it out loud and then do it in a screencast form and just break it down and click the box whenever you're talking about a specific thing, it registers differently in their mind.
Yeah.
So naturally, they don't have to ask more questions. They go, oh, okay, I got it now. And that's my experience. So If you're looking to shorten that gap, first off, get all those calls in the beginning out the way, explaining things, almost like treating it like a consulting call. If you can get all of that done before the contract starts, then naturally what's going to happen is your work's going to get a lot easier, and you don't have to worry about them, in week 2 or 3 when they just feel completely lost and you're about to rebuild them in a week. The last thing you want to charge them again, and they feel like they've been, stiffed of a couple bucks.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of the issues that people have when they come to you, and I've experienced that as well, where they feel like I hired a company for 12 months and they did nothing. It's usually a bigger issue with the communication than it is the actual delivery of what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and of course, every once in a while, there's going to be a client or two that comes to you and says, I don't feel like you're doing the right amount of work for what I'm paying you. And usually the rebuttal that comes along with that is, I'm not here to be your little task manager. I'm here to get you results, right? Because I have some clients where I do 2 or 3 campaigns and it produces the majority of the results they want to achieve for the month. And when you look at it from like a line-by-line task that's been done for the month, right, it looks like I only worked on their account for like 3 days. But hey, if it took me 3 days to figure this all out and you've just increased your revenue by $40,000, do you really care that I only did 3 days worth of work?
Yeah.
Most don't, because they just go, I added $40,000 to my bottom line because he did 3 focused days of work in my account, and look what happened. So you got to look at who you're also attracting in your business, because I don't attract people that are looking to micromanage me, because if they do, I fire them and I refund their money and tell them I don't want to work with them anymore because I'm not an employee. You're not going to micromanage me. So we make sure to tackle what we need to tackle to get them the result. If they feel we're not doing enough work, that's where the screencasts get the job done for you, because then you're able to explain why you did things a certain way.
Yeah.
And so, you sort of cover your tracks there. But hey, every once in a while you get a bad apple who doesn't understand what's going on. They think you got to be in the account 24/7. And then you realize that you just hired a client, or a client hired you to basically be their employee. And that's not ideal. It's going to happen. You're not going to bat 1,000. Every once in a while you're going to lose some.
Of course.
It is what it is.
Yeah, and obviously, some people know just enough to be dangerous, where they think they know how to do it, and it's like, you wouldn't be hiring me if you knew how to do this. So that makes a lot of sense. To be very respectful of your time, I'd like to keep it short and call it an interview here. So if somebody wants to find out, watch one of your cool case studies, or just learn more about you guys, or just reach out to you directly and skip all that bullshit, if they want to do that as well, what should they do?
So 2 things. You can go to my Facebook profile, not my fan page, my profile. If you want to see my great case studies, everything's public, right? You could just go to facebook.com/SCHLOSSY. Goes straight to my profile. Everything's public. You'll see my case studies. You'll see I post things directly from my rep. Like every week, my rep sends me information that's going on behind the scenes at Facebook that maybe you're not aware of, and I just post them. Those emails I just copy paste, bam, right into my profile and let you know what's going on. And a variety of other things in the Facebook world, what's going on in my life and that sort of thing. So you could follow me there. You could friend request me. I answer all my messages in my inbox. If you want to directly contact me through email because you want to do some business together, whether it's consulting, ad management, that sort of thing, just email me at david@convertroi.com. And I'll just get back to you from there, and we'll figure something out. But I am on Facebook pretty much all day long. So if you hit me up there, most likely if we're going to take it to the next level, I'm going to refer you to my email, and we're going to schedule something there. So either way, it works out.
So he's a machine. You heard it here first. And also, if you're going to join him on Facebook, just know you're going to see a real-ass motherfucker. That's the Frankie Finn part of that. I think, that's my, obviously not the best way to say that, but you're a very transparent man, and, you stand behind what you can do and what you can't do. And I think that makes people, just really resonate with you, because you don't claim to be all things to all people, but the ones you can help, you obviously, your worth in that regard. And I think that's pretty amazing. And like I said, there's, just my close personal circle of friends, what I've learned is always seek out the best. And I ask for that, and your name comes up all the time. So that's a testament to the great work you guys are doing.
Appreciate it. Thanks. And just to leave this off with everyone, I'll give you one Facebook tip. If you're still running Facebook ads to webinars, they still work incredibly well. But if you're looking to improve how people interact with your webinars, how they decide on whether or not they're going to stay, it's really all about integration of bots and automation now. Back then you could just send people to a registration page, hope that they watch it, and you'll get sales all the time. And there's still tons of clients that I manage that that's the case. But if you're looking to really interact with your audience and keep them engaged with you, even if it's not actually you, it's all about integrating your content with bots. That way that they can act as you during the day, keep in contact with your leads, in contact with your fans, and then naturally over time they'll consume your content at whatever rate that they want and buy your stuff every single day, every week, every month. And so if you are running webinars and you're not integrating with bots, you're losing out on an extra 10 to 20% of people viewing your content, which is incredibly important if you want to get an extra, let's just say 4 to 10 sales a week, which for some people is an extra 4 to 10 grand. It could be an extra 100 grand, you name it, right? So start integrating more technology behind the scenes into your ad campaigns. Doesn't have to be done with me. Most ad managers don't know how to do it. It's ad managers like me are hiring, dev people and, people who do any sort of like integration work on the back end with like Infusionsoft and ManyChat and all these other softwares. That's where we come into play and say, I want to build this thing. I don't know how. Can you build it for me? And so now our stuff becomes a lot more sophisticated when we can work with, the technology pieces too. So if you're looking for more sophisticated marketing in the future, you're probably going to have to be, one, doing that on your own for now. And then two, if you don't do it on your own, it's going to be very expensive in the future. So get on the ball and start putting that in your marketing now.
Amen, brother. You get a serious high five for that little nugget right there. Internet bro hand high five. Come on, I want to see it up there. Put it up.
It's like,
there it is.